Signal Sciences secures the most important web applications, APIs, and microservices of the world's leading companies, protecting over 7,500 applications and 150 billion production requests per week. Signal Sciences Next-Gen WAF and RASP help companies increase security and maintain site reliability without sacrificing velocity, all at the lowest total cost of ownership. Signal Sciences' patented technology protects any application against any attack, with integrations into any DevOps toolchain. Signal Sciences. Demand more from your WAF. Learn more at signalsciences.com/PSW. Introducing the new DigiCert. As the leading provider of high-assurance SSL, TLS, and PKI certificates, DigiCert is all about improving security across the web and IoT. DigiCert is committed to helping customers and partners successfully deploy identity, authentication, and encryption solutions. They'll even help you figure out which certificate you need to secure your web domains, apps, devices, and more. Check out the Cert Wizard tool under the SSL tab on digicert.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Our next feature... Oh, wait, announcement first. Hold on, because I only did one, right, in the previous one. Mike Thompson, a.k.a. MT, John Strand, and myself are giving a webcast on how threat intelligence is transforming your techniques as security professionals and mapping threat actors through your infrastructure. We're going to talk about OODA loops in the first half and how that applies to fingerprinting threat actors, and then MT has an awesome case study, basically how he was able to look at some things inside of the your website and your logs and things like that, and inside the malware, but more like web-based, and track those threat actors. So, and that is a very old headshot of you. It is a very old headshot. That's when you had hair. That was way back in the day. Probably 07, maybe. Yeah, like when we first started this, because I still have that background. Yeah. The backdrop. It's back when there was, just a quick side note, there was someone posted about their ShmooCon cooler. Remember the cooler? Yes. Yes. I used mine to go fishing with my kids. And I thought to myself, I was like, wow, I'm like, this thing's been around like forever. I'm like, yeah, it still keeps my beer cold. Yeah. I'm like, there wasn't room for the kids' juice boxes, but whatever. I mean, it kept my beer cold. Yeah. And then Josh Marpet was posting about he was putting like breast milk. Yeah. Like how old are we now, right? Like what we used to go to a con and fill our coolers with beer. Now we're using it to put breast milk in. So yes. I don't know what happened to mine. Oh, I think I destroyed it. I think I spilled something like epically nasty in it, and it was uncleanable. Like acid. Was it coconut oil by any chance? Yeah. No, that just goes in the beard. All right, gotta oil the beard. Oh, so make sure you go to securityweekly.com/domain tools, and we'll talk about the resiliency of your ShmooCon cooler bags. This segment, though, is going to take a different direction, as we would like to welcome Limor Elbaz from Peerlyst. She's the founder of Peerlyst, the largest community of security professionals serving more than 500,000 security experts in over 191 countries. Limor, welcome to Paul's Security Weekly.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Limor, how did you get your start in information security?
Ooh, that was a long time ago. So I actually started in security in the Army, in the Israeli Army. Was doing some IT projects, and at that point I was in the Air Force, and we wanted to safely connect the Air Force to the internet. That was like probably my very, very first project, and from there I headed security for the Air Force, and after that, you know, just a series of companies that do security.
That's awesome. And so what prompted the decision to start Peerlyst?
So Peerlyst really started from me working for several security vendors like Finjan and Imperva, and dealing a lot with Gartner. I found that we were doing a lot of work for Gartner to produce a report. So we would have usually a guy coming in to learn about the topic, and we'd have to tell them everything about our product, and then it would go to our competitor, get a few more questions, come back to us, ask the same questions. So all of this back and forth, and then produce some reports. So I really wanted to produce something. I thought that process can be automated. I found out, so we actually created a machine learning algorithm that went to the web and found everything people say about products, and produced some kind of an automated report. But quickly we found out that people are not expressing opinions well enough or frequently enough about products, and we created a place for them to do that. And so we really started at the end of 2014 as a place for people to review products, and quickly realized that people wanted to just talk about so many other things other than not just products. Actually, products reviews, the feature has been killed since then. So people wanted to just discuss so many different topics, and it really evolved into a whole place where security people can connect, people can kind of grow their career, grow their reputation, learn, share their knowledge, and just find resources that they need to do their day-to-day job.
That's awesome. So for the security practitioners out there, and many of them that listen to this show are trying to break into the field of information security. Well, what can they expect on Peerlyst? Like, what's their motivation to join Peerlyst?
Yes, so I think the beginners, this is kind of the hardest phase in security, right? Because when you want to start your career in security, you take some courses, you do some reading, you maybe even take a very expensive certification, but then you really don't have a way to get your hands wet. It's very hard to find products to practice on. It's very hard to actually find problems to solve. So I was very lucky to have had that in the Army, because I had plenty of problems to solve. And I was just thrown into kind of the deep water right from the start. But most people who start in security are not so lucky. So what we are trying to do is really, first of all, we're trying to make all the knowledge free and open for everybody. So really the idea is that we're crowdsourcing all this content. We don't produce the content ourselves. So we have over 100,000 resources and wikis in security, ebooks, training, courses. Everything is free. Nothing costs money. So if you want to learn, it's a very good place to start learning. The second thing is a place for you to really find a mentor. And connect with other people. So going to events is not cheap for a beginner to do. I've seen a lot of beginners volunteer in, even serving food at Black Hat or RSA just to get in the event. And so we want to allow them a place that's kind of like an event for like 365 days a year, where you can connect with people, ask questions, and get opportunities all year long. And then the last thing is, of course, jobs. We do have a relatively new feature where you can search for a job. So I think the knowledge being open, along with mentorship opportunities, and having opportunities to find jobs should help beginners quite a bit.
And now, when practitioners sign up, it's completely free to them, correct?
Yes, sign up is free and is always going to be free. Yes.
And then some of the content that you have, is that stuff that like people donated basically to like get their name out there or what have you?
Yes, so I think that the motivation of writing is, first of all, most of the security people, I think when I started the company, everybody was very skeptical. Will security people even talk? Will they even share information? And surprisingly, they share quite a bit. They're actually very, very active, and the community feels very intimate and very personal. So even though it's quite big now, you can really find help if you have a problem you want to solve. People really try to help each other. So why do people contribute? One is a lot of people really want to help others. And two, when you contribute content on Peerlyst, we actually track your knowledge, your reputation. So we have karma scores, and we have basically every post gets scored in the backend, and every profile gets scored. So we kind of keep track of what do you know, and what are you interested in? So we invite you to relevant discussions. So the more you demonstrate knowledge on a topic, the more you'll get invited to relevant discussions on that topic. And then people are crowdsourcing things like ebooks. We have a big series of ebooks where every chapter in the book was actually contributed by a different author from within the community. So people are writing quite a bit. We also are ranking really high now on Google. So amongst security companies, we actually rank higher than 90% of security companies. So for many, many people who want to start their own blog, it makes sense to just start it on Peerlyst rather than to, go writing on their own site, and then they have to deal with marketing, which they don't want to do. That's not their expertise. They're security people. So we're giving them the audience, and they want to come and write and really do what they're doing best, which is security.
Gee, that message, that whole giving to the community, that sounds very familiar.
Very familiar, right?
Very familiar. Writing on a blog and maybe turning that into a podcast where folks share and give back and try to build community. Man, that's wow.
Pretty cool, right? So what's
awesome.
What's some of the most popular content on your site?
So I'd say the most popular content are resources, mostly around how to do stuff. So just to give you some examples, how to do reverse malware engineering, how to use open source fuzzers, how to use mobile hacking tools, how to build a security operations center, stuff like that. Also, so how to is a whole category of content that's very, very popular. The other one is tips and guides about acquiring certifications. So, how to prepare for my CISSP exam or things like that, CCSP tips and stuff like that. And then the last segment, I'd say, is really things related to kind of like cheat sheets or lists of tools, kind of like wiki-like things like a dynamic analysis tools list, OSINT tools list, and mobile pen testing cheat sheet, things that people are using very often. And the reason this content is popular, obviously, is that we rank very, very high on that kind of content on Google, and we get a lot of traffic organically from Google for that content, because that's what people are basically searching for, even when they don't know Peerlyst. They're searching, and this is how they're discovering us.
Limor, what's interesting is our data shows the same thing. Like all of our how-to content tends to do the best on our network. So, and like
sense.
The information about certifications, like how to study guides, also rank very, very high as well.
That's great. Yeah.
What's the most requested content? Like, if there's an area of content that doesn't exist, but you've got tons of people like requesting it, what's that content look like?
So we actually have the whole list that we publish on the site. Here are some topics for you to contribute to, and they're changing from time to time. So, like for example, now GDPR is a very hot topic, right? Recently, it was before that it was IoT security, and before that it was mobile security. These are like big buckets of things that people wanted to talk about. I think the how to do specific tasks and how to achieve a certification are things that are going to stick with us for a very, very long time. I mean, I think indefinitely. But there's always like a topic that is like the hot topic right now, right? I'm sure you guys see the same in your show. So GDPR now is obviously a very, very hot topic, and also blockchain. I think cryptography, this is kind of the area where I grew up, but cryptography is kind of coming back to become something hot that people want to talk about because of blockchain platforms.
No, I can totally see that. Hey, Keith, do you have questions for Limor? I know, Keith, you I think were the one that suggested we get Limor on the show. So
I was, yeah.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot. Sorry.
It's quite all right.
Really.
So I remember speaking with Limor, with your colleague Klaus Human, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I just know Klaus is what I usually call him. Him and I have talked quite a lot.
It's his name.
And so one of the things he talked about extensively with me was the wiki of wikis. And I'm wondering if you can expand on that for our listeners, because I thought that was something that, being such a fan of things like the Arch Linux wiki, growing up and using Arch Linux was big for me. And so learning about the Peerlyst wiki of wikis was a big deal as well. If you could tell us more.
Yeah, definitely. So Klaus actually kind of initiated the idea. We've always had a lot of resources on the site. We have thousands of resources, but Klaus really liked the idea of creating wikis for specific topics. So we have wikis around, like patch management, healthcare security wiki, HIPAA wiki, backup wiki, OSWP wiki, and so on. But then we created something that's kind of like an index, which he calls the wiki of wikis. It's kind of an A to Z of wikis in security. We found that, on Wikipedia, you can get very technical, and it's very problematic also to mention products and company names. And also it's kind of a place where you already have to have a certain, admin privileges to be able to produce a wiki, but not always the people who have those privileges are really the experts on security, right? So very, very hard to find technical content there, and Peerlyst has become a really great resource for wikis in security. So this wiki of wikis is really just an index of all the wikis on Peerlyst, and it's accessible from our very first homepage. And we're actually creating something parallel to that. We have another initiative where we're doing kind of a dictionary of security with all the terms. So it's important to remember Peerlyst has today over 10,000 security topics. And so the typical user experience is they come in, they go through a little onboarding, and then they follow the topics that they care about, right? So I like cryptography. I follow cryptography. I get news about cryptography. I get blogs from other people. I get any new resource in cryptography. I get all the content for cryptography on my feed. It's kind of like a Facebook feed. So the wikis are something we've noticed are really something people spend a lot of time on, and you also can be following a particular, shortcut on our navigation. You can shortcut a particular topic you're interested in, so you can always jump in and see all the new stuff, all the new content for that particular topic. So sorry, the wikis are really something we encourage people to help us produce, because it's all crowdsourced.
Do you, as a user of Peerlyst, do you get to kind of subscribe to certain topics? Is that what you were describing?
Yeah, you basically follow, you can follow people, you can follow tags, which are the topics, and you can follow companies, and you can follow products, and then every mention of them, you'll get the content on your feed. Very, very much like Facebook in that sense. But there's some unique aspect of it, because we really push content, also external content to your feed that is only relevant, only stuff that's relevant to your areas of interest. And you can kind of create shortcuts on your menu of the topics you're interested in. So we find it to be much more effective than, 1990 mailing lists.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a dating site for security professionals. So
yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it,
right? Because you can find a mentor, and you can subscribe to certain topics. It's kind of like a dating site.
Yeah, but also it's a good way to, if you're managing products, you're using certain products, and you want to follow the news about these products, but you don't want to be harassed, by salespeople. It's a great way to just say, hey, I use certain products. I use Illumio. I use, Automox, whatever it is. I use some products. I want to follow them, and I want to get new content from those vendors without the intrusiveness of interacting. Sometimes with the vendor is much more intrusive. So, the stuff is not, you don't need to fill a form to get that content to your feed.
I love Automox. I mean, Illumio's. I'm sure they're good too. I love Automox because they're a sponsor of ours. So
yeah, DigiCert is also, I think, a joint sponsor of you guys and us.
Who's that?
So yeah, DigiCert.
DigiCert. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, but you've got a very similar mission to Security Weekly, right? Like we want to make the information free to our community, and then we want to monetize from the vendor side. And so in that way, we're in alignment, right? I mean, that's how you're funding this site, right? This is your full-time job.
Yeah. The way we're actually we have a team of 12 people, and the way we sponsor the site is, other than having we do have venture capital funding.
Okay.
But we have vendors, members who are really they're allowed to produce content that's educational and distribute it to the community. They don't get leads from us. We don't sell them leads. They don't get contact information of users from us. They can only interact with users organically if the user wants it. But they get, the name of their product in the right moments in front of the audience. And we recently also launched a jobs portal for recruiters. We are considering a new service, which would be more of probably our first security service per se, where we would offer security people a little dashboard when they log in to show them any records of their organization that have been breached and are being traded in the darknet or anywhere else. This is another effort that we're doing. We're crowdsourcing the data. All the breaches are being given to us by our users, actually. So users are dropping the breaches on our secure drop anonymously or not if they choose not to. And we take all these trillions of records and we digest them, we structure them, and we make the search in them available. We have it today on nosecrets.peerlyst.com, but we'll make it available in a more commercial kind of version for CISOs and heads of security soon on the site.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're looking forward to get feedback on that. That would be great.
More questions for Limor, Keith, Larry?
Yeah, I had actually one as well. I know that a while ago, so I think it was Joe Gray was saying that he was working with you folks on Peerlyst to do the Through the Hacking Glass project. Yes. I don't know if that's still going on or if you can share more with our listeners about that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So Joe Gray is actually a Peerlyst ambassador, and he's running our mentorship program called Through the Hacking Glass. We gave our brand to this mentorship program because we want to help, beginners in security to find mentors. And so we work with Joe and his partner on essentially getting the word out to our users that they can find mentors and also finding mentors for them from within our community. We have a lot of thought leaders in the community that are helping us get more mentors. It's very hard to get the time of these people. Everybody's already overworked because of this deficiency in talent. But I think there's a really big mission of this community to help other people to come up to speed and join the workforce, right? So Joe is leading this initiative, and if you search Through the Hacking Glass on Peerlyst, you'll find everything about it. Yes.
That's awesome. No, I'm glad to hear that it launched successfully, and it sounds like it's having a lot of success. I remember speaking with Joe. Gosh, I want to say it was August of last year, September of last year as well, just before that was launched because of the InfoSec Mentors project and my experience with that, and talking about design patterns and all those good things. So it's good to hear that it sounds like it's having a lot of success. Is it only SOC focused, or is there more like areas that people can work within?
No, it's really within all security topics. It's something that started pretty recently, so we're kind of giving it a big push, and we will give it another push. I didn't mention, but we're going to give it another push at RSA. We We just recently partnered with RSA Conference. It's a pretty big deal for us, so maybe just an opportunity to mention it. And the first RSA conference we're going to be attending as a strategic partner is Singapore, coming up in a couple of weeks, and we will be pushing the mentorship program there as well, offering it to visitors of the event.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. Have you thought about expanding and I know you're still ramping Peerlyst, doing the security thing. Have you thought about expanding the business model to include other communities, such as web development that may not be security related? That I have this specific task that I want to do, kind of like a Stack Overflow type of thing, or completely outside of the industry. Say, maybe one of my other passions, like knife making.
Yeah. That's a very good question. So we did consider it. We're constantly thinking about it. We actually were asked by one major media company to produce that for a medical devices space. We also are in talks with one very large vendor about doing it in the network space. I think DevOps is an area where there's a lot of need for it. I think there's definitely an opportunity, but if we were to do it, we would be having to raise quite a bit of money. It's a big investment to ignite a community. Taking into account, Peerlyst. At Peerlyst, we haven't started monetizing until the community has been running for over 2 years. So it takes a lot of money to really build the community before you can monetize on it. And also it's a matter of attention span of the team, but something we are considering. I think especially now that GitHub was acquired by LinkedIn, which is now owned by Microsoft, there's a lot of movement. It's just like a lot of users started using their Peerlyst profile as their main profile instead of LinkedIn. I think a lot of people who use GitHub are going to become a little paranoid now that it's owned by Microsoft. So it's going to be an interesting journey in the next year or so, I think.
Are you going to be at the Black Hat conference coming up?
No, I will not, unfortunately. I'll be traveling, but I definitely hope to connect at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, are you based in Israel today?
No. I'm in San Francisco. I've been here for like 12 years.
Okay. I got you.
See, Paul, you could totally connect up on Peerlyst.
That's right.
So out of curiosity as well for the community, right? So you've been growing this for some time, what was it like, especially getting started, right? So what was your experience, just kind of opening the doors and how has that growth been for you folks over the last several years? Because, it sounds like right now you've got quite a lot in terms of area of expertise, user contribution. How was that getting started? Because I imagine there are a lot of people that are thinking, is this big enough for me to now get involved in where I can go and really drive value? And I would say firsthand they can, but I want them to hear it from you.
Yeah, I think that the start was not easy at all. I have to say I started several security companies and had some good exits, but starting a community site is so different. And for me, it was really hard personally when I went to raise money. Every investor I met said, just start a security company, we'll invest. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing community? What is this about? What is this thing of like wanting to do something good for the community? They just were not getting it. And we eventually were lucky to find investors who are super, super supportive, Illuminate and Hammer Windblood and Correlation, and we're able to start it. But I think for us, the real tipping point was we started as a gated community. You couldn't use the site if you didn't sign up, and it was very, very hard to grow. And then we moved into an open site that's really leading by good content. And from there, it was much, much, much easier. And I think now this big milestone of having a partnership with RSA Conference is going to be the next jump for us, because, it's the number one conference in the world saying, hey, we want to make you our community. We have the biggest event. You have the biggest thing online. We want to join forces and do something together. That's a really huge step for us.
Awesome.
So for our audience, Limor, what's the driving factor to sign up for the site? Like, what can people expect? What can you tell our audience to kind of entice them to go sign up for the site?
Yeah, so I'd say, just like any professional would want to have a LinkedIn profile to be found and for people to kind of know what they're about. That's kind of what we see Peerlyst for security people being. Go there, show people not just what you say you know, but what you actually know. Just demonstrate it. Participate, and you'll get two things from it. You'll get your reputation out there, your name out there, and maybe your next job opportunity. But also, other than showing what you know, you'll also get the best, really what I consider pure and clean source of information. Because there's just no noise. So it's a really great way for a security person to start their day by just going, kind of sifting through their feed on Peerlyst and reading the latest things from real people who are not marketers, who are, real people that want to share their knowledge. I find it a really fun way to start my day, to just read what's new in security and not, go through a bunch of populist magazines. I'm finding it much more effective for me to, learn.
So on the discussion side, thinking about what it takes to build a community like this, how much of the discussion is moderated? In that, I can very much see this discussion evolving into offhanded politics and bad type of stuff. What goes into to encouraging good behavior?
Well, it's a great question, because even LinkedIn has suffered from some of that too. You see more and more of the discussions getting political. I'm like, no, I went to LinkedIn so I didn't have to read about.
Yeah, I went to LinkedIn so I didn't have to have it turn into Twitter.
Yeah,
exactly. It's an excellent question. Actually, my biggest problem on LinkedIn now is the messaging, right? The amount of spam I get is just intolerable. But really, to your question, we implemented a self-policing algorithm where the community members, kind of like Stack Overflow in that sense, community members can flag content. We take that very, very seriously. We're usually responding within an hour to a flag content. We're very strict about keeping this security and security only. So any post that's not about security is likely to be removed. And we're as strict with users, with vendors as we are with users. So also vendors, when they post content, even though they pay us a membership fee, they have to post educational, non-salesy content. Very, very hard. It's a really high bar. But we help them, and we even offer help in authoring, but we're really strict about it because I think that's the only thing that's ever going to keep us, growing. So absolutely, we're strict about it, and we have a pretty good reputation system. We've implemented it with the architect is Randy Farmer, who wrote the book Web Reputation System, and has helped Stack Overflow and Nextdoor and many other companies, where the way you behave actually sets the way your karma is building up. Awesome. So the better you behave, the more score you get. And even though we don't present the score, it is used everywhere in invitations to discussions, in how high you rank in search results, in how much your post is going to pop up for other people. It is used across the board on the site.
Excellent. That's awesome. So my final question, Limor, was how challenging is it to provide security for this type of site? As we're a very curious bunch as security practitioners. Do you find? I would imagine that more people are more helpful rather than harmful. But I'm sure that you see your fair share of attacks.
Dude, you put a WAF in front of it.
Yeah, you just slap a WAF on it. It's fine. Yeah.
We do use the WAF, but no, actually, the reason we're a very secure site is because the community is so awesome. So we have over a dozen volunteers from within the community who did audits for us, pen tested the site, report issues to us, and basically help us secure it. We are lucky to be able to ask any vendor for any product we want, and we are lucky to have a vendor provide us with a free WAF and amazing support. And we're really lucky to have a bunch of services. But more than anything, I think it's the community. We've had a ton of volunteers just helping us every time we've upgraded our infrastructures, when we changed our stack. Every time we made a major change, we did a bug bounty program. And our head of community, Evgeny Belenky, is actually the guy who headed the bug bounty program at Samsung. He's worked with me in my first startup. We know each other for like 15 years. So this is kind of his expertise, and we're reaching out to a lot of people all the time. We're taking this very, very seriously. I mean, this is our community. This is one thing we have to take seriously.
In terms of the information I have to share about myself to sign up, it's really just my name and email address, right? You're not requiring a lot of information to sign up.
Yes, I mean, you can sign up today using your LinkedIn, single sign-on, or using your Google, or using an email and name, and you can use a nickname if you want. A lot of people import their Twitter, ID, and they want to use that same name on Peerlyst, but all you have to provide is an email.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Limor, thank you very much for appearing on Paul Security Weekly. It was wonderful having you. I want to encourage our listeners to go subscribe and check out the site.
Thank you, and thank you for this kind interview.
Just to make sure our listeners know, it's Peerlyst, Lyst, if you're looking for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And
thank
with
you.
that,
thank you, guys.
We will take a short break and come back with the security news for this week. Stay tuned.